The massive alien ship hung in space like a dark cloud. Its surface glowed with strange blue lights that pulsed in rhythm. Commander Alan Wright watched it from the bridge of his ship, the EDF Relentless. His hands gripped the rail in front of him until his knuckles turned white. "They're 3 times our size," said Officer Samantha Miller. She stood at her console, her face lit by screens showing the alien vessel. "And their weapons are like nothing we've seen before." Alan nodded. The aliens called themselves the Zithgar. They had appeared at the edge of human space 2 weeks ago. Their ships were faster, bigger, and more powerful than anything humans had built. And now they wanted Earth's new colonies. "Put the message on screen again," Alan said. The main view screen flickered. A tall, thin figure appeared. The Zithgar had hard shells instead of skin, with lights that moved across their bodies in patterns. This one's shell was dark green with gold markings. Admiral Nell had told Alan this meant the alien was a high-ranking commander. "Humans," the alien said through its translator, "you have spread to stars that are not yours. The Andromeda Council has ruled that the Proxima system belongs to the Zithgar Empire. You will remove your people from these worlds." Alan felt his jaw tighten. 5,000 human settlers lived on those worlds. They had built homes there. They had children there. "And if we refuse?" Alan had asked in their first talk. The aliens' body lights had flashed red. "Then we will remove you ourselves. Your weapons cannot match ours. Your ships cannot fight ours. Surrender now and save lives." Now 3 days later, Alan and his crew waited for orders from Earth. The Relentless was just one ship. It could not fight the Zithgar alone. "Commander, we're getting a transmission from Earth Command," said Miller. "It's Admiral Nelson." The screen changed to show a woman with short gray hair and sharp eyes. Admiral Karen Nelson had fought in 3 space battles during the Mars Rebellion. She was tough, smart, and never gave up. "Commander Wright," she said with a nod. "I've reviewed your reports on the Zithgar ships." "Yes, Admiral," Alan said. "Their technology is far beyond ours. If they attack our colonies, I don't think we can stop them." The Admiral's face showed no fear. "We have a plan. I've spoken with the Zithgar High Commander. He has agreed to a series of tests instead of war." Alan blinked in surprise. "Tests?" "Weapon tests," Admiral Nelson explained. "In the asteroid belt of HD 45364, far from any colonies. Each side will show their best weapons. If we win, they leave our colonies alone. If they win, we must give up the Proxima system." Miller spoke up from her station. "But Admiral, their weapons are at least a century ahead of ours, maybe more." The Admiral smiled slightly. "That's what they think too. And that's why they agreed to this challenge. They believe they will easily win." Alan shook his head. "With respect, Admiral, they're probably right. Their ships use quantum shields and dark matter cannons. We're still using chemical rockets and laser arrays. Sometimes old ways are the best ways, Commander." Admiral Nelson leaned closer to the screen. "The Zithgar have never fought humans before. They don't understand us. They think because their technology is newer, it must be better." "Isn't it?" Alan asked. "They've been at peace for 2,000 years, the Admiral said. They've developed weapons, yes, but they haven't used them in real war. Humans have been fighting each other since we first picked up rocks. We know what works." Alan wasn't sure he understood. "What exactly is the plan, Admiral?" "Chief Engineer Doug Peterson will be joining your crew tomorrow. He's bringing special cargo from Earth's military vaults." The Admiral's eyes glinted. "Old weapons, Commander. Very old weapons, but with some new tricks." The next day, Alan watched as Peterson's shuttle docked with the Relentless. Peterson was a short man with thick arms and hands rough from years of building and fixing things. Behind him, crew members moved large metal crates onto the ship. "What's in those?" Alan asked. Peterson grinned. "Ancient history, Commander, and the future of human space." He patted one of the crates. "The Zithgar think they know about weapons because they have fancy tech, but they've forgotten something important." "What's that?" asked Miller, who had come to meet the engineer. "The basic rules of physics haven't changed," Peterson said. "An object in motion tends to stay in motion. Force equals mass times acceleration. Energy can't be created or destroyed. He knocked on the crate with his knuckles. These old weapons follow those rules very, very well. Alan looked at the ordinary metal crates. Could they really hold something that could match Zithgar technology? The tests begin tomorrow, he said. The Zithgar High Commander, Zakavorn, will meet us at the asteroid belt. He's bringing their best weapons experts. Peterson's smile grew wider. Perfect. I can't wait to see their faces. He paused. Well, I'm not sure if they have faces like we do, but you know what I mean. That night, Alan couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the settlers on the Proxima worlds. If this plan failed, they would lose their homes. Maybe worse. He got up and went to the cargo bay where Peterson's crates were stored. The engineer was there, working on what looked like an old cannon. Will this really work? Alan asked. Peterson looked up from his work. Commander, do you know why humans beat the Martian rebels even though their ships were faster? Alan nodded. Our railguns. Simple, powerful, and hard to stop. Exactly. And do you know why we use bullets that expand when they hit a target, even though we've had laser weapons for 50 years? Because they do more damage, Alan said. They're more reliable. Peterson pointed at him. That's the secret the Zithgar don't understand. The best weapon isn't always the newest or the most complex. It's the one that gets the job done. He patted the cannon. And these will get the job done, trust me. As the sun rose over Earth the next day, the EDF Relentless set course for the asteroid belt. Alan stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak by. Soon they would face the Zithgar and their advanced weapons. All weapon systems ready, Commander, Miller reported. Engineer Peterson says his special cargo is prepared as well. Alan took a deep breath. Then let's go show the galaxy what humanity's old weapons can do. The asteroid belt around the star HD 45364 was a perfect place for weapons tests. No one lived there. Nothing would be harmed except rocks floating in space. The EDF Relentless arrived first and waited. Zithgar ship approaching, Officer Miller announced. Her voice was steady, but Alan could see she was nervous. The alien ship appeared, moving smoothly between the asteroids. It was shaped like a giant arrowhead, with glowing lines running along its hull. Small fighter craft flew around it like bees around a hive. They're showing off, Engineer Peterson said with a snort. He stood beside Alan on the bridge, arms crossed over his chest. Trying to scare us with their fancy ships. A message came through. High Commander Zakavorn of the Zithgar wished to speak. Alan nodded to Miller, and the alien's image appeared on screen. Zakavorn was taller than the other Zithgar they had seen. His shell was dark purple with silver markings. The lights on his body pulsed slowly, showing he was calm and confident. Commander, right, the alien said. We are pleased you accepted our challenge. It is better to settle matters this way than through needless war. Alan knew the Zithgar only offered this challenge because they were sure they would win. We agree, he said simply. We will send a shuttle to your ship, Zakavorn continued. Our delegation will meet with yours, and we will proceed to the testing area together. An hour later, Alan stood in the Relentless's main hangar. With him were Peterson, Miller, and Lieutenant Olivia Jones, their best weapons officer. The Zithgar shuttle landed smoothly, its engines making almost no sound. The alien delegation emerged. There were 5 of them, all with shells in different colors. Zakavorn led them, standing nearly 7 feet tall. The translator device around his neck converted his clicking speech to English. Let us begin with projectile weapons, the alien commander said. Our gravity-accelerated mass driver against whatever projectile weapon you choose. They all boarded a special testing vessel. It was small but heavily shielded, designed to let them watch the weapons tests up close but safely. It moved to a position among a cluster of medium-sized asteroids. The Zithgar went first. Their weapon was mounted on the outside of their main ship. It looked like a long, thin tube surrounded by glowing rings. Our mass driver uses dark energy to accelerate projectiles, explained one of the aliens, a scientist with a blue shell. It can fire a 1 kilogram projectile at 90% of light speed. Alan watched as the weapon fired. There was no flash, no sound, but a large asteroid simply exploded, turning to dust in an instant. Impressive, Peterson said, sounding not very impressed. Zach Vaughn's body lights flashed in patterns that suggested pride. Your turn, humans. Peterson had his team move their weapon into position. It looked exactly like an old cannon from Earth's naval ships, just with some modifications. The Zithgar delegation made clicking sounds that the translator didn't convert, but Alan guessed they were laughing. This is a modified M68 cannon, Peterson explained. Technology from Earth's 20th century. It uses chemical propellant to fire a depleted uranium penetrator. One of the Zithgar scientists clicked rapidly. Such a weapon cannot function in space. There is no oxygen for combustion. Peterson grinned. We added an oxygen release system. Simple fix. Lieutenant Jones took position at the controls. She aimed at an asteroid smaller than the one the Zithgar had destroyed. Ready to fire, she said. The cannon fired with a burst of flame that lit up space around it. The projectile moved much slower than the alien weapon's shot, but when it hit the asteroid, something amazing happened. It didn't just break the rock, it went straight through it and hit a second asteroid behind it, punching a clean hole through both. The Zithgar delegation went silent. Their body lights flickered in patterns that suggested confusion or shock. Impossible, Zach Vaughan finally said. Your primitive chemical propellant should not achieve such penetration. Peterson shrugged. We made some changes to the old design. The penetrator has a monomolecular edge now, and a vibration core that increases impact force at the moment of contact. But, one of the alien scientists began. Basic physics, Peterson interrupted. Force equals mass times acceleration. We may not accelerate our projectile as fast as yours, but we designed it to focus all its force on a tiny point of contact, and we added a little trick to multiply that force right when it hits. The Zithgar delegation spoke among themselves in their clicking language. Alan could tell they were upset. They had expected to easily win this first test. Zach Vaughan turned, back to the humans. A fortunate design, he said, but projectile weapons are primitive by nature. The true test of advanced civilization is energy weapons. We will proceed to the second trial tomorrow. That night, back on the Relentless, Alan found Peterson working on what looked like a large metal tube with rings around it. What is that? Alan asked. Free electron laser, Peterson replied. Technology from the early 21st century, but with some special additions. Alan looked skeptical. Their energy weapon will probably be something we've never seen before. Some kind of advanced quantum technology. Peterson looked up from his work. Commander, did you know that the basics of laser technology were figured out in the 1960s? The principles haven't changed. We've just gotten better at making them more powerful and more precise. So you think our old laser can beat their advanced energy weapon? Alan wasn't convinced. I know it can, Peterson said, because we understand something the Zithgar have forgotten. What's that? Peterson tapped the metal tube. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution. The Zithgar build complex systems with many parts that can fail. We build simple systems that just work. The next morning, Alan felt more confident. The first test had gone well, but energy weapons were where most advanced races focused their technology. This would be the real challenge. As the testing vessel took position among a new cluster of asteroids, Alan watched the Zithgar prepare their weapon. It was smaller than he expected, an elegant device that glowed with purple energy. Our quantum phase. Disruptor represents 10,000 years of Zithgar weapons development, Zach Vaughan announced proudly. No material can withstand its atomic disruption effect. When they fired it at a large asteroid, the purple beam made the rock implode, collapsing in on itself until nothing remained. Now it was humanity's turn. Peterson and his team positioned their weapon, the modified free electron laser they called Excalibur. Your turn, Zach Vaughan said, body lights pulsing with renewed confidence. Peterson nodded to Lieutenant Jones. Let's show them what old technology can do. Peterson gave Lieutenant Jones a nod. Fire when ready. Jones pressed the firing control. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The Zithgar delegation's body lights pulsed in patterns that suggested amusement. Then a beam of brilliant white light shot from the human weapon. Unlike the purple Zithgar beam, this one made no sound. It simply cut through the target asteroid with perfect precision, slicing it into two clean halves that slowly drifted apart. But the beam didn't stop there. It continued on, cutting through two more asteroids in the distance before Peterson turned it off. The Zithgar delegation's body lights flashed chaotically. Zach Vorn's translator struggled to keep up with his rapid clicking. Impossible, the alien commander finally said. Your civilization has only been in space for less than 2 centuries. How have you developed such precise energy control? Lieutenant Jack Rivera, the weapons specialist who had helped Peterson modify the laser, stepped forward. The principles were always sound, he explained. We just needed better materials and power sources. The focusing crystal is grown in lunar gravity, and the power source. He grinned. Well, that's a secret. Zach Vorn's body stopped flashing and became very still. Alan had learned this meant the alien was thinking deeply. Your weapon cut through multiple targets, the alien said slowly. Our disruptor is more powerful but less precise. Different approaches to the same problem, Peterson said with a shrug. You focus on raw power. We focus on efficiency. The Zithgar delegation spoke among themselves in their clicking language. Alan couldn't understand the words, but their tone seemed less confident than before. We will continue with explosive weapons tomorrow, Zach Vorn announced. Perhaps. Then the natural superiority of Zithgar technology will become clear. As the aliens returned to their ship, Admiral Nelson contacted the Relentless from Earth. How are the tests going, she asked. Alan reported their successes. The Zithgar are surprised, Admiral. They didn't expect our weapons to perform so well. Nelson nodded, looking pleased. Good. Now it's time to really shock them. For the explosive test, use the Edison device. Peterson's eyes widened. The Edison device? Are you sure, Admiral? Well, it's not exactly subtle. That's the point, Chief, Nelson replied. The Zithgar need to understand exactly what they're dealing with. Humanity may be young in space, but we've spent centuries perfecting the art of blowing things up. After the call ended, Alan turned to Peterson. What's the Edison device? The engineer ran a hand over his face. It's based on technology from the 1940s, but with some major improvements. He looked at Alan with serious eyes. Let's just say, it packs a much bigger punch than the Zithgar will be expecting. The next day, the Zithgar demonstrated their explosive weapon first. It was an antimatter cascade torpedo. When it hit its target cluster of asteroids, it created expanding rings of energy that consumed each rock completely. Behold the power of perfect energy conversion, Zach Vorn declared, his confidence clearly restored. What primitive explosive could possibly compare? Peterson and Rivera wheeled out what looked like a simple metal sphere about 1 meter across. It had an old-fashioned digital timer display on its surface. This is what we call the Edison device, Peterson explained. One of the Zithgar scientists pointed at the timer. That timing mechanism looks absurdly primitive, he said, his body lights pulsing in what humans had learned was the alien equivalent of laughter. Sometimes simple is better, Rivera replied calmly. Less things to go wrong. The human team placed the device on a large asteroid and moved the testing vessel to a safe distance. Even Zach Vorn seemed curious now. Beginning countdown, Peterson announced, activating the device remotely. The timer on the sphere counted down from 10. When it reached 0, there was a brief pause. Then the asteroid didn't just explode. It created a miniature sun that burned with impossible brightness. Everyone on the testing vessel had to shield their eyes. When they could see again, they found that the explosion had done more than destroy the target asteroid. It had created a perfect sphere of empty space. Every asteroid, every piece of space rock within that sphere was simply gone. The Zithgar delegation stood in complete silence. Even their body lights had dimmed in shock. How? Zachforn finally managed to ask. This violates all understood principles of explosive yield relative to mass. Admiral Nelson had joined them for this test. She stepped forward now. The Edison device uses a modified hydrogen fusion reaction, she explained. But the fusion is only the trigger. The real explosion comes from a momentary dimensional fold that allows energy to bleed in from higher dimensions. But that technology, Zachforn began, was theorized in the 20th century by Earth scientists, Nelson finished for him. We just figured out how to make it work. Later, back on the Relentless, Alan found Nelson looking out a viewport at the distant Zithgar ship. Why are we showing them all our best weapons? He asked. Aren't we giving away our advantages? Nelson smiled slightly. We're not showing them our best weapons, Commander. We're showing them our oldest weapons with some new twists. I don't understand, Alan admitted. The Zithgar need to believe that if they attack us, we will respond with even more powerful weapons, Nelson explained. What they've seen so far is impressive, but it's just the beginning of what humanity can do. So this is about scaring them? Alan asked. Partly, Nelson agreed. But it's also about earning their respect. The Zithgar respect strength. By demonstrating ours, we open the door to real negotiations instead of threats. The next morning, Zachforn requested a meeting with Admiral Nelson aboard the Relentless. To everyone's surprise, he came alone. Your weapons are not what we expected, the alien commander said once they were seated in the conference room. No, I imagine not, Nelson replied calmly. Our scientists are particularly troubled by your dimensional fold technology, Zachforn continued. It suggests your understanding of certain physical principles may be more advanced than ours in some areas. Nelson said nothing, letting the alien work through his thoughts. The final test is tomorrow, Zachforn said. Electronic warfare systems. Our quantum-entangled drone swarm against whatever you choose to present. He paused, his body lights pulsing slowly. But before that, I wish to ask, if we proceeded with our original plan to take your colonies by force, what would happen? Nelson's face remained neutral. We would defend ourselves, High Commander, with all means at our disposal, including weapons more advanced than those you've shown us? Nelson simply smiled. Zachforn's body lights flickered rapidly. I see, he said finally. Perhaps there is room for reconsideration of the Proxima system's status. As the alien left, Peterson approached Nelson. Do we actually have more advanced weapons? He asked quietly. Nelson's smile widened just a little. What do you think, Chief? Peterson laughed. I think the oldest human weapon might be our ability to bluff. It's not bluffing if you can back it up, Nelson replied. And tomorrow we'll show them one more surprise. She looked at Peterson. Is the Rickenbacker effect ready? Peterson nodded. Simple device, complex results. The Zithgar won't know. What hit them? Perfect, Nelson said. Let's finish this. The morning of the final test arrived. Both human and Zithgar crews seemed tense. This last demonstration would focus on electronic warfare systems, weapons that attacked the enemy's technology rather than their ships or bodies. Alan watched. As the Zithgar prepared their display, their ship launched what looked like hundreds of small drones. Each was about the size of a human fist, with a shiny metal surface that changed color like oil on water. Our quantum-entangled drone swarm, Zachforn explained. His body lights pulsed with pride, but Alan noticed they were dimmer than before. Each drone shares a quantum connection with every other drone. They think and act as one mind. The swarm moved through the asteroid field with amazing grace. When Rivera fired a test shot from the Relentless, the drones instantly formed a shield that blocked the beam. Then they split into 5 groups and attacked 5 different asteroids at once, destroying them all at exactly the same moment. Impressive coordination, Admiral Nelson said, nodding respectfully. Your drone AI must be very advanced. It is not AI, corrected one of the Zithgar scientists. True artificial intelligence is too unpredictable for weapons. These drones use quantum entanglement to share information instantly across any distance. Nelson raised an eyebrow. Interesting approach. Now it was humanity's turn. Peterson brought forward nothing but a small metal box with a single red button on top. The Zithgar delegation stared at it. "What is this?" Zachvorn demanded. "Where is your weapon?" "This is it," Peterson replied calmly. "We call it the Rickenbacker effect, after the physicist who discovered it in the 2030s. Zachvorn's body lights flashed in patterns that suggested disbelief. "That small box cannot possibly be a weapon system capable of matching our drone swarm." Peterson just smiled. "Would you like to bet on that?" The Zithgar scientist with the blue shell leaned forward. "What does it do?" "It's easier to show you," Peterson said. With a dramatic motion, he pressed the red button. For a moment, nothing happened. The Zithgar began to click among themselves, their body lights showing patterns of contempt. Then every piece of active Zithgar technology, from their drones still hovering in space to the communication devices on their suits, simultaneously deactivated. Even their massive warship's lights flickered briefly. The drone swarm, suddenly without control, drifted aimlessly in space. "What have you done?" Zachvorn demanded, his translator barely working. Admiral Nelson stepped forward. "The Rickenbacker effect generates a field that temporarily neutralizes certain quantum states. Your technology relies heavily on those states." She paused, letting the implications sink in. "Think of it as a targeted EMP, but based on principles your scientists haven't discovered yet." The Zithgar delegation was silent. Their body lights had dimmed to almost nothing, which Alan had learned meant they were deeply shocked. "You could have disabled our ship completely," Zachvorn said finally. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Nelson agreed simply. "And you have weapons, more powerful than the Edison device." Nelson just smiled slightly. It wasn't a confirmation, but it wasn't a denial either. The Zithgar conferred among themselves for several minutes. Finally, Zachvorn turned back to face the humans. "The Andromeda Council must reconsider its position on the Proxima system," he announced. "We propose immediate talks to recognize human sovereignty over those worlds." "We would welcome such talks," Nelson replied, her face neutral but her eyes triumphant. Later, as the Zithgar returned to their ship to contact their leaders, Peterson, Rivera, and Jones joined Alan and Nelson on the observation deck of the Relentless. "Did we really win?" Jones asked, her voice filled with wonder. "Just like that?" "We didn't just win a fight," Nelson said. "We avoided a war." Rivera shook his head in amazement. "I still can't believe it worked. They really thought their technology was so superior that we couldn't possibly compete." "That was their mistake," Peterson said. "They focused on developing new principles of physics. We focused on applying the basic principles we already understood in new ways." "Was any of it true?" Alan asked Nelson quietly. "About the dimensional fold in the Edison device and the quantum state manipulation in the Rickenbacker effect?" Nelson's eyes twinkled. "What do you think, Commander?" "I think—" Alan considered his answer carefully. "I think the weapons worked. That's what matters." "Exactly," Nelson agreed. "In war, perception is as important as reality. The Zithgar now perceive us as dangerous. That perception protects our colonies more effectively than any weapon could." "So we bluffed them?" Jones asked. "Not at all," Peterson laughed. "Our weapons did exactly what we said they would do. We just let the Zithgar draw their own conclusions about what that means for our technological capabilities." Nelson turned to look out at the stars. "Humanity's greatest advantage has never been our technology. It's our creativity, our ability to take old ideas and make them new again. And our willingness to fight," Alan added. "The Zithgar have been at peace for thousands of years. They've forgotten what it means to face an enemy who won't give up." "So what happens now?" Rivera asked. "Now we negotiate," Nelson said. "From a position of strength, not weakness. The Zithgar will respect our borders because they believe we can defend them." "And can we?" Jones asked. "If they decided to attack, with their full fleet?" Peterson and Nelson exchanged a look. "Let's hope we never have to find out," the Admiral said. 2 days later, Alan stood on the bridge of the Relentless as the Zithgar ship prepared to depart. Formal talks between Earth and the Andromeda Council would begin next month. For now, the Zithgar had agreed to recognize human control of the Proxima colonies. Commander Wright. Zakvorn's voice came through the comm system. Before we leave, I have a question. Go ahead, Alan replied. Your weapons. They are all based on very old human technology, correct? Yes, Alan confirmed. Some of the principles date back hundreds of years. There was a pause. Then I must ask, what new weapons have you developed in recent years? Alan smiled slightly. I'm afraid that information is classified, High Commander. Another pause. I understand, Zakvorn replied. Perhaps it is better that way. As the alien ship moved away, Lieutenant Miller turned to Alan. We don't actually have more advanced weapons, do we? Alan thought about Nelson's smile when asked that question. I don't know, Lieutenant. That information is above my pay grade. But we won, Miller said. We saved our colonies without firing a shot in anger. Yes, Alan agreed. And we taught the galaxy an important lesson. What's that, sir? Alan looked out at the stars where human colonies were now safe from alien threat. Never underestimate a species that spent its entire history finding better ways to win fights. Peterson, passing by, added with a grin, and never assume that just because a weapon is old, it can't still pack one hell of a punch. As the Relentless set course for Earth, Alan thought about the tests they had conducted. The Zithgar had shown weapons based on principles humans were still struggling to understand, yet humanity had won using modified versions of weapons designed decades or centuries ago. It wasn't about having the newest technology. It was about understanding the technology you had and using it in ways your enemy didn't expect. That was the human way. And for now, at least, the galaxy had learned to respect it. 3 months had passed since the weapons tests with the Zithgar. The EDF Relentless was back in Earth orbit. Alan stood in Admiral Nelson's office at Space Command headquarters, looking out the window at the blue planet below. The formal treaty with the Andromeda Council was signed yesterday, Nelson told him. The Zithgar have officially recognized our right to the Proxima colonies. They've even offered to establish trade routes. Alan turned away from the window. That's good news. Very good news, Nelson agreed. But not the reason I called you here. She pushed a datapad across her desk. You're being promoted, Commander, or should I say Captain Wright? Alan stared at the pad. Captain? You've earned it, Nelson said. Your handling of the Zithgar situation was exemplary, and now I have a new assignment for you. The Admiral brought up a star map on the wall screen. She pointed to a system Alan didn't recognize. This is the Epsilon Indy system. It's 30 years away at our fastest ship speeds, but apparently it's only 10 days away using Zithgar drive technology. I don't understand, Alan said. What does this have to do with my new assignment? Nelson smiled. The Andromeda Council was impressed by our weapons, so impressed that they've invited Earth to send a representative to attend their full council meeting. You're going to be that representative, Captain. Alan's eyes widened. Me? But I'm not a diplomat. No. You're a soldier. Nelson agreed. And that's exactly what we need right now. The Zithgar may respect us, but the other races in the Andromeda Council don't know us yet. They need to see that humans are strong but fair, ready to defend ourselves but not eager for conflict. Alan looked at the star map again. When do I leave? In 2 weeks. The Zithgar are sending a ship to transport you. Nelson's face grew serious. This is a critical mission, Captain. The future of human expansion depends on how the Council perceives us. I understand, Alan said, but I have one question. Go ahead. Those weapons we used against the Zithgar, Alan said carefully. The dimensional fold technology, the quantum state manipulation, were they real? Or did we just get lucky with some modified old tech and a good bluff? Nelson was quiet for a moment. Then she walked to her office door and checked that it was securely closed. When she returned, her face was very serious. What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest level, she said quietly. The Edison Device does create a small dimensional fold, but not in the way we explained to the Zithgar. It's much more limited than we led them to believe. And the Rickenbacker effect? Alan asked. Also real, but not as powerful as the Zithgar think. It can disrupt their drone communication temporarily, but it couldn't actually disable their ship. Nelson leaned forward. The truth is, Captain, we're still decades behind the Zithgar in pure technology. But what we lack in technology, we make up for in application and strategy. Alan nodded slowly. So we did bluff them. Not exactly, Nelson corrected. Everything we showed them worked exactly as demonstrated. We just allowed them to draw their own conclusions about how powerful our technology really is. And now they think we're technological equals, Alan said. Which is why they're willing to treat us as equals diplomatically, Nelson finished. Sometimes perception is more important than reality. 2 weeks later, Alan stood in the Relentless's hangar bay as the Zithgar transport ship docked. With him were Peterson, Miller, Rivera, and Jones, his chosen team for the mission to the Andromeda Council. Nervous? Peterson asked him quietly. A little, Alan admitted. We'll be the first humans to meet the other alien races in the Council. If we make a bad impression, we won't, Peterson said confidently. Just remember what got us here, using what we know in new and unexpected ways. The Zithgar ship's docking tube connected with a soft hiss. The door opened, and a familiar, tall figure emerged. High Commander Tsakvorn, Alan greeted him. I didn't expect you to come personally. The alien's body lights pulsed in a pattern Alan had learned meant pleasure. I requested the assignment, Captain Wright. Our tests together were educational. As they boarded the alien ship, Tsakvorn led Alan and his team to a large room filled with star maps and displays. The Andromeda Council consists of 17 spacefaring species, Tsakvorn explained. Some are old like the Zithgar, with thousands of years of space travel. Others are new with only a few centuries of experience. Where will humanity fit in? Miller asked. That is yet to be determined, Tsakvorn replied. But there is considerable interest in your species. Your approach to technology is unusual. How so? Rivera asked. Tsakvorn's body lights pulsed, thoughtfully. Most races advance by discovering new principles of science. You advance by finding new uses for old principles. The alien turned to Alan. There is a saying among the Zithgar. New knowledge brings power, but wisdom brings victory. Your species has shown remarkable wisdom for one so young. As the ship left Earth's solar system, accelerating to speeds human vessels couldn't yet achieve, Alan looked out at the stars streaking by. Somewhere out there was a gathering of alien races who had never met humans before. They would judge Earth based on what Alan and his team showed them. What will we do at this council meeting? Jones asked. Listen, Alan said. Learn about these new races, and when the time comes, show them that humanity is ready to join the galactic community. And if they decide we're not ready? Peterson asked. Alan smiled slightly. Then we'll show them what humans do best. Adapt and overcome. Later that night, as the ship moved through space faster than any human had traveled before, Alan found Tsakvorn in the ship's observation dome. The alien was looking at a holographic display of the Andromeda Council's home system. May I ask you something, High Commander? Alan said. Of course, Tsakvorn replied. Why did the Zithgar really back down? Was it just our weapons? The alien was quiet for a moment. His body lights pulsed slowly. Partly, he admitted. But there was something else. Something in Admiral Nelson's eyes when she spoke of defending your colonies. What was that? Alan asked. Certainty, Tsakvorn said. The absolute certainty that she would use any means necessary to protect your people. The alien's translator gave a sound like a sigh. The Zithgar have not had such certainty for a very long time. We have grown comfortable, Alan thought, about this. And that made you respect us? It made us recognize ourselves as we once were, Tsakvorn corrected. Long ago, when the Zithgar were new to space, when we believed in things strongly enough to fight for them. The alien turned his gaze to Alan. Your old weapons are formidable because they were built by people who could not afford to fail. We had forgotten what that was like. As Alan returned to his quarters, he thought about what Zakvorn had said. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their modified old weapons or their clever tricks. It was their determination, their refusal to give up even when facing a technologically superior enemy. That was what had impressed the Zithgar. Not the weapons themselves, but the spirit behind them. The human spirit. And as their ship raced toward the Andromeda Council and humanity's introduction to the wider galaxy, Alan knew that spirit would serve them well in the challenges ahead, because no matter what new technologies the other races might possess, humanity's greatest weapon would always be the same: the will to survive, the creativity to adapt, and the courage to face the unknown with nothing but their wits and determination. Some weapons never went out of style.